people have begun to lose their hopes. People who have no hopes are easy to control, and whoever has the control has the power.
Hey guys, I just want this video regarding NIO and Chinese politics and just my general view of the stock market and just the sentiment going on around. I'm not a financial advisor, this is just my own opinion, so please do your own due diligence, okay? There's going to be a lot of people that tell you what to do and why you should do something, but I say the best thing you can do is just believe in yourself and have hope, because without hope, it's really hard to get out of bed and do things you're supposed to do, and with hope, it gives you the energy to keep trucking on even when times are hard. And with hope, it's what helps us move forward. And so with that being said, I wanted to focus more on the Chinese politics that are heavily affecting the United States right now. We'll start this off by going over Chinese news. Anytime you look at the news in general, you're always going to see negative things. So we'll start with this. The US military says Chinese jet came by 10 feet of a B-52 bomber. Another one would be like the death of Li Keqiang. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. And then, yeah, there are some other things that are important that are finally being addressed. Like, if you look at things with China, it's always like, oh, someone died, or there's a spy balloon, or there's military confrontation, or things like that. And while those things are important, that's just day-to-day news. There are 1.6 billion, 1.3 billion people in China, and you know, it's really easy to start up commotions and things like that. But yeah, when you look up news in general, it's really important to understand that there's always going to be like negative sentiment, and because there's a lot of great things and positive things going on in this world, but you know, death sells, violence sells. And so when you look at the news, it's always going to be negative things that invoke strong feelings. Like if you saw something like, oh, we built 500 solar panels, or oh, we helped this emerging economy grow and help their people have a better standard of living, no one really cares. But when you sell violence and wars and animosity, it brings up a lot of revenue and a lot of viewership. So let's look at this real quick. Israel and Hamas and the whole thing of Gaza. So the Israel and Palestine thing has been going on for over a decade, like generations. The war in Ukraine has somehow been forgotten about, even though this has also been like a long-lasting event that's been over 10 years now. When you also look at the news, a lot of it's generally bad. Okay, so our ex-president has some fraud trials going up. Let's see, foreign affairs. I would not trust foreign affairs from Fox. Few Americans follow closely now, 2016. Newsflash. Something about COVID and things like that. So when you look at the news, not a lot of it evokes positive feeling. Hurricane Otis, Israel, Biden plays it cool, Iran, proxy wars, and Lewiston. Oh, this is the main shooting, right? So most of the news that we see is generally bad. It evokes terrible feelings and negativity. And so when you have feelings of negativity, when you lose hope, it's much easier to control you. That's why when you see like a lot of radicals in this world, a lot of radicals are people who have lost hope, who feel helpless, and are seeking something to fill that void. And so it's always important that you believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, no one will, and you'll be controlled easily. So let's take a look at these news. So whether we like it or not, China and the United States are going to continue to trade and prosper together, because this is just the byproduct of a globalized economy. China dominates the East and the United States dominates the West, and both of these economies have positively more so than negatively impact other countries and emerging economies. Maybe, you know, it depends, right? They're not the same, but they definitely do help, right, in a globalized economy, and they do terrible things. But with that being said, Biden and Xi expected to meet next month after high-level US-China meetings. This is important because I believe this is the first time that these two are actually going to meet up in person. No phone calls, no ambiguous phone calls for 1 or 2 hours. Nope, these people are going to be meeting up in person. So the last time these two have actually been meeting up, they've got along pretty well, actually. So let's see, Joe Biden and Xi. So they actually have met up a few times. Back when Joe Biden was before he became the president, he was the vice president, and he was very good at foreign affairs. At least when it came to like building bridges. And to be honest with you guys, I do think that Joe Biden as a politician, whether it's the United States, the right and the left work together. Okay, it's kind of like California being the left and the Florida being the right. They both work together and they both have common interests, but they all work for the same country and the same government, the same people. Okay, so do I think that Joe Biden is a war hawk? A little bit, but I think there's many worse people out there. There's probably much worse examples. Do I think that Joe Biden hates China? No. I think that Joe Biden really very much loves China, and I think a lot of people in the United States do, whether they realize it or not. Do I think that businesses and corporations and government entities love China? Yeah, I think they do. That's why we do so much business and trade with them. It doesn't stop. Our deal with China is so good that we can buy a product for them, like razors or supply chain products or raw materials or processed manufactured goods, and mark it up over 500 to 700% easily and sell it to Americans. So do we really dislike China? No, we love them. They buy our debt, they help our credit markets, they help finance a lot of our things, and they help reduce inflation tremendously. Without China, we're not going to have 2% inflation. It's just impossible. So when we look at Joe Biden and Xi, they have a lot of respect and they have a lot of tenure together. I know that Joe Biden says a lot of things in public, but it would be really hard for Joe Biden to come out and say, yeah, let's be pro-China. Let's have a win-win situation where the Chinese and the United States can win. It would be bad because Joe Biden and the Democrats, they need to win the next election, right? That's all they want to do. They want to keep their party in the House. And so you have to appeal to moderates. You have to appeal to some people on the right. You have to appeal to people on the left. And so if it calls for rhetorics that bash China or hate China, it might have to be that way. But that doesn't mean that Joe Biden or the Democrats really intrinsically hate China or think that we should cut ties with China. I think they know much better how dependent our economies are on each other and how it's just going to keep being this way for, forever, till the day we die. And so I know, it's like you can pretend to hate someone and you can put these sanctions and trade wars that they're not very effective. And then you can fool Americans and then use the media as your tool and use to build up anti-China sentiment, but that doesn't mean it actually turns into anything substantial. Now, of course, you want to help your own economy by giving them strategic advantages and things like that, but that doesn't mean that the United States really hates China. And if you look at things from a macro point of view, just by looking at the data, the trade ever increases, and so does the business between these two countries. So, yeah, no matter what they say, that doesn't mean it's actually what's happening. These two countries are very much continuing to trade and become even closer strategic partners. And this is what you have to do if you want to have global peace. But it can't be done overnight. If you want to integrate China and you want to accept that this is a multipolar world, you have to do it slowly, or else the American people are just going to be really upset. They might become radical, or they might start losing faith in their own country or on their own supremacist ideas. And whether Americans like it or not, they just have to accept it. So I don't think these two have really any issues with each other personally. I know things have been said. I know the news presents things in a way that makes it seem that way, but it's all smoke and mirrors. It's all just an illusion, in my opinion. Because the data speaks much larger than anything else. And when you look at the United Nations, or the way that the the relationship between China and Taiwan is, it's they all believe in a one China policy. It's left intentionally ambiguous in order to be a strategic advantage for America. And look, I do think that yes, there are things you can point down and say, oh, this is an issue, that's an issue. Look at the United States encroaching on China. What do you mean? And I agree, but these things may not matter when you have mutually assured destruction, when you have to project. Of course it does, but I don't think it matters that much unless we let it matter. So yeah, it's really important that these two meet up in person, because they're going to be able to speak about things. These two are pretty much the world leaders at this point, along with maybe Russia and India. But these two have so much influence on the country. Well, especially this person. I don't know about this one, but this one definitely has a lot of influence on the world. So I know they're going to be talking about Israel, Palestine, and Gaza and things like that, but there's definitely going to be talks about economics and trade and, debts being paid and things like that. It's going to be I think there's going to be a larger focus on economics, because when you look at wars and things like that in Gaza, or between the Palestine and Israel, these things have been going on for so long, but there's like predetermined factors that need to occur in order for wars to happen. So we're probably going to be looking at things more of a social. They're going to be talking about more economics and social and geopolitics than anything else. And I think that's what it's probably going to be about, especially about the economy. So I think that these two things will be like it'll be on the table, but I think they're definitely going to be discussing more of the economy. Another thing that's pretty bullish, in my opinion, for Chinese companies and Chinese stocks and moving forward could be the diplomat of, I think his name is Wang Yi, and he's going to be talking to someone like Blinken. And so I understand, yes, these people will be talking about the whole situation in the Middle East, but the world's much bigger than just the Middle East, right? Did we just forget about Ukraine? Can we forget about Middle East pretty fast? Maybe. But this going from China to the United States is a big deal, because they're going to be talking about economic cooperations, and that could be much better for the United States. And I want to explain why after all this. Then you had someone like Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, which is the 5th biggest economy in the world, visit China, visit Xi Jinping, and visit with other politicians as well in China. And so what Gavin Newsom wanted to do was he honored the Chinese companies like BYD that are in California, and he said that he wants to do economic cooperation with with China. And you need that, because if your goal is to move towards a greener technologies and build up your economies, you need to build your relationships with China, because you can get these kind of things from China. Some things that China's lacking is some things that the United States are lacking, especially in California, is businesses, because a lot of these businesses like Tesla, or there's probably like a large list of companies, but a lot of manufacturing companies, and like Tesla is just one example, have been moving to more friendly states that where there's lower tax brackets and more incentives for businesses, like Arizona or Texas and Florida, things like that, where they're generally red states, and Nevada. And so these companies have been moving their headquarters and manufacturing out of California. And so what that does is that it creates a brain drain, right? So that's not good for California's economy. It also brings in less revenue. And so if you want to maintain California as the 5th largest economy, you want to bring jobs, you want to end homelessness, you want to mitigate all these social problems, what you want to do is bring skilled talent and jobs. And you can do that by bringing a company over like NIO or BYD or Xpeng or Xiaopeng and things like that. There's a huge Asian demographic in California and Hawaii, and these two states of America really need to diversify their economy away from just like hospitality, tourism, and service-based jobs. They need to start bringing in highly technical jobs that produce real revenues for the country and a lot of skilled talent and labor. And this is the best way to do it. If you partner with China, they can bring their companies over like Honda did to, I believe it was Maryland, on the top of my head. So, yeah, these are all really bullish things that I don't think investors are really discussing enough. Because if they understood the implications of these things, it's pretty much saying like, hey, China, we need to work with you, and we want to make our economy better. Now, when Joe Biden became president, it would look really bad if immediately he said, hey guys, we're going to work with China and have a win-win solution. But if you put on a front that, oh, I'm so anti-China, and oh my gosh, China's so bad, and you say, oh yeah, I'm a war hawk, just like the Republicans, like, yeah, okay, we kind of are, yeah, we still are, but like, it's like this was going to happen either way. Like, you cannot stop this, whether it's Trump or the right or the left. Like, you know, we're both wings, both parties are the right wing of the dying vulture, so it doesn't matter. This was going to happen anyway. All these events were probably going to happen. It doesn't matter. It's not just because, oh, Trump could have kept them in place. That's ridiculous. That's not acknowledging a lot of other things that occurred to lead up to these events. So let's see, what else could we think about? Okay, so maybe we could look into, let's look into like Gavin Newsom just a little bit more. Yeah, so it does show that it's a possibility to engage on a state level, because, you know, just because Gavin Newsom can't push huge policies doesn't mean that he can't bring Chinese businesses over, like, which he already has. Like, BYD is all over the Californias, and all the buses are BYD. Like, if you want to speed up green technologies and the transition, you bring someone like you bring Chinese workers, you bring Chinese businesses over, and that's going to definitely happen really fast at China speed, as they'd say. So it's a good thing. And the West Coast generally has a lot of Asian people and a lot of Chinese people who are more willing to open their borders with China and do way more trade with China. And there's less xenophobia, there's less negativity towards China. Like, because there's not reason, they understand that China's not bad. You know, they don't have feelings of resentment. So, let's see. I think Andrew Yang also said something about this. Andrew Yang, win-win China. I believe it was Andrew Yang who said that in order for the United States to move forward, it doesn't have to be a us against them thing. It can be a win-win solution. And he ran under the Democrats. Okay, here we go. So, Democratic nominee, presidential candidate, said that, unlike many other of his Democratic competitors, Yang does not believe an ascendant China is necessarily a threat to the United States. He considers, however, Beijing and military ambitions, but these things, authoritarianism, theft, intellectual property, these are things that we should be worrying about what the United States is doing as well towards China. But his point is that they're not an enemy. We can have win-win situation. We can be mindful of China and things that we don't agree with, but, you know, like, we have to work with China. Like, it can be a win-win situation. So I do think that this is going to benefit Chinese companies alike, because you can't, like, when you look at things like the Hang Seng Index. I mean, look at this thing. Are you telling me that all the companies in the Hang Seng are just overvalued, that it needs to keep going down? Like, when does the value of these companies that they actually do produce and provide actually start reflecting in the price of their assets? Same thing with NIO stock. I mean, how long can you keep these companies down? Now, I understand that Li Auto has been doing fairly well. It's doing much better. I think it's like over 100% since the IPO, but How long can you justify the poor stock performance when the company continues to do well? I mean, at this point, I don't even know if you can justify, like, with the amount of cash that NIO has, and then like the amount of partnerships and developments that they're having. Like, when you look at their when you make your own projections of where the company's profits are going to be and the company's revenues are going to be, in the next 5 to 10 years, can you really justify a low stock price of $7.44, with a low market cap of $12 billion for the industry that it's in? I find it really hard to justify a lower market cap. But you know what? Perhaps when the Alps come out and like their mass vehicle comes out, it'll be much more easier to like visualize the steps, because it is a gamble, right? When you if you're hoping for your mass market to pick up, like you would have to hope that it sells very well. um but yeah, when you have someone like Gavin Newsom, odds are I do think that if he does continue to build relationships with China, he's probably going to bring NIO over to China, from China to California, to build out the mass marketed vehicles, and then start doing battery as a service with NIO's mass market in California. It's a great place to start, and I'll probably be one of the first buyers too. But it's not just like growth companies like NIO. I mean, look at Tencent. How how can you justify the company having stock prices substantially lower than 2017, especially when you compare it to a lot of its American competitors? Like, I understand you can nitpick every company and find like flaws with it, but really, Tencent, the giant, the one that everyone uses whether they realize it or not? What about like Alibaba? Look at this thing. This thing is trading far below what I ever thought it would be. I don't think anyone expected this. Is this trading below IPO? I would have to look. I don't think it is. I don't think it is. But, or if you look at Amazon, like, how can companies like this maintain all its gains, and like a company like that produces so much value like Alibaba not be able to maintain these things? Like, and it's very well possible that the United States will be like, hey, we've been telling our investors, we've been telling our hedge funds, we've been telling our we've been telling basically everyone in the financial industry to short Chinese stocks, and to not even just short them, but to avoid Chinese stocks as a part of trade, right? But they'll say something like, hey, I noticed that you're selling a lot of your bonds. Like, I noticed that you're selling a lot of our treasuries. I noticed that you're diversifying your economy. I noticed I noticed that we really need your help right now. Like, we really need Chinese money, Chinese produce, Chinese products and services to really help strengthen the United States economy. Because the essential things for United States economy is things like oil, goods and services, food, and energy, right? So China can produce food, to some extent. China can produce goods and services, which will heavily reduce our inflation in the United States. And they can produce jobs and manufacturing by bringing it over to America, and technology and skill, all things that would eventually reduce our inflation. So perhaps when China offers strengthened economic relations with the United States, then they'll be like, okay, you have brought jobs for my people, you have brought skills and technology, you have given us way better trade deals so that we can help bolster our stocks and our economy, and therefore we will, after doing all these things, we will help bolster your economy too, and your stocks, by allowing our companies and investors and hedge funds to give more positive sentiment towards Chinese companies. I do think that things are generally state planned when it comes to the United States or China. Like, these things, both economies are very well planned out. It doesn't matter. I don't really believe in the idea of freedom anymore. There's too many individuals, so there needs to be a plan. But overall, all these things are very bullish for Chinese equities and companies like NIO. Not just because it's good for Chinese and U.S. relationships, but helping the US economy to be in a healthier place also allows for growth companies in general to perform better over time, and it also helps like lending practices to help growth companies. And then this could also just bolster up the overall economy and the sentiment around the stock market, right? Because people are maybe willing to diversify more into Chinese equities if they have extra. People are more willing to invest in Chinese companies when you have less negative sentiment towards them, and you have the US media saying good things about these companies instead. So I think it's all cyclical, right? We have times where we really dislike China, and then we have times where we really like China. To me, all of it doesn't really matter. I think the U.S. does a lot of terrible things. They're an imperialist country built on colonialism, so it doesn't really matter. But anyway, I just want to say that it's really important that you have hope and that you have an understanding, because without hope, you can be easily taken advantage of, and it's going to be really hard to use your logic when you're being way too emotional. And I think way too many people are being emotional about things. So with that being said, I hope you all have a good day, and remember,
never give up, and good luck will find you.